Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Football! Football, yeah! Football! Football!
And a happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Happy birthday, America, here tomorrow on Purple Daily, where we bring in our friend from Matthew Berry's FantasyLife.com and from the JJ McCarthy Direct Family Tree, Thor Nystrom.
Happy training camp month, Thor. It's here. July is here.
There's an NFL football game this month.
I know.
There is. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and we're close enough to smell the tailgate now.
Oh,
yeah.
Potato salad?
Yeah, all the good stuff.
Coleslaw?
Just a cooler full of beer. God,
some ahi tuna crisps.
Okay, now we've gone too far. Again.
Just my tailgate.
Now,
Okay.
yeah, just you, your little hoity-toity tailgate.
Yeah. If you smell something funny and need a plumber in your house or help with your HVAC system, MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning can help you out, Judd.
It's the best place to go. Why? Because we're getting into that time of year now. In fact, I saw that there's a heat advisory for Friday, hot and sticky. And guess what? If your AC, let's say it's functioning, but you could tell it's not going at full strength, MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air are going to fix that for you. That checkup, $49. That's a small price to pay for an AC tune-up that will give you a peace of mind that your house is safe and comfortable. Repairs, installs, reliable service is what MSP is all about. Also, ask about their Total Comfort Club membership and know that system will be taken care of year-round from these fine folks. Just give them a call at 651-615-4292 or check out their website, callamsp.com. Callamsp.com. And know that your house is comfortable for those hot summer months.
Thor, is that a Raiders coffee mug? Do we have all 32 teams of coffee mugs?
We're pretty close, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Not a Packer one, though. So
Of course. I was going to say,
Bears.
we got to draw the line somewhere in the north.
You got Lions?
The Raiders are non-threatening,
No Lions.
right? They're mostly terrible.
They are very non-threatening, and it's a great logo. So
it is, yeah. I feel like, it's kind of, when they're good, the NFL is more fun. But they're rarely good. It's been Judd's the only elder statesman old enough to remember, except for that one pop-up with Rich Gannon.
Yep.
I'm kind of interested this year with the new staff and Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, and then they got Gino and Genty. Could be interesting this year.
Well, yeah, they might hit the over. Hit the over.
Could be frisky.
Well, Ask Thor Anything was so wildly popular a couple weeks ago. We figured let's bring it back here. We always get, we do Feedback Friday on the show, and we get questions often that are kind of addressed to Thor, like, hey, maybe you guys can float this to Thor, and we're just not great about bringing those to the Thursday episodes until now, and especially during the dead of the off season. Let's just clear some space for people to ask Thor anything, starting with Tad Funderman, who says, obviously we know Thor loves JJ McCarthy, so he might be a bit biased on his answer here. But what does he think the floor and ceiling comps are for JJ McCarthy in 2025? And then Tad gives an example. Best case is Joe Burrow 2021, while the floor is like Bo Nix from last year. Do you have any specific comps for, or even just vague comps for JJ McCarthy's floor and ceiling this year?
Yeah, well, in general, when I do the NFL draft work, and everyone knows I do the comps for every guy. I have the 500 player board with the 500 comps, but most guys, I actually have 3 comps. I have a bonanza comp, middle of the road kind of comp, and then sort of the low end comp for each guy. I think it's helpful to think about it like that way. And for me, coming out JJ McCarthy, the bonanza comp is John Elway. He plays the game like John Elway does, and there are similar physical gifts there as well. If everything goes right in his developmental progression, he will be John Elway. The middle tier outcome is Rich Gannon, I believe, and we were just talking about the Raiders. We're talking more late career Rich Gannon with the Raiders. He won an MVP one of those years. And then my low-end comp for him was Jake Plummer. I don't see how JJ McCarthy is worse than Jake Plummer. I don't see how that would be possible. So those are my 3 career progression comps for him. This year, yeah, like you're looking for recent precedent. Burrow is an interesting one. I see that comp from other people sometimes when they're going more their bonanza comp. There's some aspects of it that I get. There's other aspects that I don't. Burrow might be a little bit better in structure inside the pocket. JJ is certainly better creating off script and out of structure. So their games are a little bit different, but I could see some of that. There's some Mahomes there, as far as escaping, getting outside. The 10th overall pick, who the first year did not play and then came in the second year, and everyone's like, that team is making a mistake from having moved on from the veteran. It was Alex Smith in the case of the Kansas City Chiefs. Turns out they didn't make a mistake, and I think the Vikings fans are going to see that the Vikings front office didn't either.
So, Thor, what does the infrastructure that JJ is being provided with mean too, though? Because it's we sort of break these QBs off as their own individual team, right? Like you've got to make the team. Jake Plummer was on some, and he was actually not a bad player at all, but he was on some sort of questionable teams at times. So when we look at McCarthy and the infrastructure that he is being provided in his first year as a starter, how much does that influence the expectation? Because it certainly is, when you look at the offensive line, the interior being rebuilt, the receiving core, it certainly is a favorable a group around him offensively.
Yeah, the expectation should be high. And I expect them to be met, but they should be high. Everything was, even going back to the quarterback decisions, right? Like first moving on from Cousins and then moving on from Sam. And then a Hall of Fame quarterback is begging you to sign for pennies on the dollar. And the Vikings said no to all 3 in deference to starting JJ McCarthy. They have high expectations that they expect to be met. And everyone in that building is putting their careers on the line. If it's possible for people to believe in JJ McCarthy more than me, the people in the Vikings front office and their coaching staff have done so with their actions.
The Elway thing, you've mentioned the Rich Gannon. You mentioned the Rich Gannon comp like early, like in January or February or might have been even like it was around that time, a year and a half ago. Elway is one of the great athletes in the history of that position, and he was a guy that could keep plays alive and play off schedule. And that's an element that I think part of the reason why people overlook McCarthy or question the validity of like, why would the Vikings go into this season without much of a safety net? He wasn't really allowed to play outside of, not allowed, but he just like didn't play outside of structure that much at Michigan. But when you saw it and he's running away from like these NFL caliber players on the Alabama defense, and the statistics, didn't you mention he's like over 70% completions when outside the pocket, on the move, on the run. And so those are the things, and you see glimpses during training camp, but in terms of like live ball, actual football, that's the thing that I'm the most interested to see, because life's, even when you have a good roster, life's not always in the pocket perfect in the NFL. The difference between Mahomes and Elway and Josh Allen, like the top quarterbacks of their generation, can they make something happen after the first 2.5 seconds because things have gone sideways in some form, Thor?
Yeah, and JJ's film certainly shows high end capability for doing that in the instances where first, second option aren't there, and now the progression of the play, now you have to start creating. He was tremendous when we saw him do that. The quarterbacks that should scare people out there, that where their game translates really well to the NFL, it's guys where they can do both. They can play inside of structure, they can play outside of structure, and you can project that, both elements of that, to similarly succeed in the NFL. JJ outside of structure, that's certainly going to work in the NFL. He runs in the high 4.4s, and he had the 6th fastest 3-cone at the combine. The athleticism jumps off his film, but the fact that he can work within structure as well, that was the thing that Harbaugh and the Michigan coaching staff taught him to do early on in his time at Michigan, and he became one of the better within structure quarterbacks that we had in college football the last couple of years. We've talked about his work over the intermediate between the hashes, and he was the best quarterback in the last class at that. Those are those anticipatory type concepts. His ability to do both, and of course you have the perhaps the NFL's best supporting cast here. That is certainly going to help with the within structure stuff, but the fact that he is so dang flammable outside of structure is the thing that is not being talked about enough right now.
I know it sounds a little rhetorical, but if JJ McCarthy, let's say, is Jake Plummer, who, by the way, speaking of Declan quarterbacks that he has random attachments to, Jake Plummer is also significantly higher on that list. Now, Jake the Snake actually had some legitimate success in the NFL, unlike the other quarterbacks I like to hitch my wagon to. But if McCarthy ends up being Jake Plummer, is that a disappointment? Is that a disappointment for his career? I know Plummer never won a Super Bowl and had maybe 1 or 2 playoff wins. He went to the playoffs actually a lot, but only had 1 or 2 playoff wins. Would that be a disappointing outcome? I personally don't think so, but I guess if you're,
I think it would be it would be like something between a bust and a success for sure. I don't know that it's a disappointment like a bust is, but it's not what you'd be expecting right now with this roster infrastructure and the 10th overall pick. I think I'd be disappointed.
If JJ McCarthy had Jake Plummer's career, it would be a disappointment to me, and it would be a disappointment to the Vikings front office, and it would be a disappointment to the Vikings coaching staff. It would not be a disappointment, I don't think, in relation to the draft equity that you spent on him. That, right? You can just sort of do the math on this. If in Jake Plummer's year, if he was the 10th overall pick, would he have justified that selection? I think he probably would have, by the career value that he gave, right? So, yeah, disappointing to me and the people inside that building certainly have higher expectations for him than Jake Plummer. But even Jake Plummer, I think you have returned value on that slot.
He'd be a disappointment to his family, to his unborn child, but not to the draft equity.
So,
yeah, that's right.
Jake the Snake was a second-round pick by the Arizona Cardinals in '97. Let me go through his timeline as a Cardinal, and this is where I think it's somewhat unfair because these were some bad football teams.
The Cardinals were such a disaster.
In '97, he started 9 games, and I'm not going by. I'm not putting him down. I'm saying here are the records of the teams he started for: 3-6, 9-7, 3-8, 3-11, 7-9, 5-11, and then he goes to Denver and goes 9-2, 10-6, 13-3, 7-4. So this is where I think the comp game is hard because Jake Plummer was a pretty damn good QB, played on some bad teams, and that's my point about McCarthy. He's being given the keys to a car that's a really nice car, and so it's hard to. I think you can certainly compare playing styles, but then when you're talking about careers, some of it's not completely up to the quarterback. It's up to what the front office did, and that's, to Phil's point, that's back in the days where the Cardinals, I'm not saying they're great now, but in the 90s, they were a dumpster fire.
They sure were. Yeah. So, and that, we talk about situation and context and how that affects career progression with some of these guys. And the fact that everything is set up so well for McCarthy right out of the gate, that should add to the expectations out there. And if Jake Plummer had gotten drafted onto this team, right, certainly early in his career, people would have looked at him even more favorably than they did, being on those dead-end Arizona teams.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, Ask Thor Anything continues here with Jared on Twitter. This one comes in here. Outside of quarterback, what position has the most value on their rookie scale contract?
That's interesting. Left tackle would be certainly up there. I might go tackle. We've seen the premier offensive linemen going earlier and earlier. This past draft, it was 3 of the top 9 were offensive tackles. And spoiler alert, my mock draft, first one of 2026, dropping on Fantasy Life next week. There are oodles of offensive tackles going at the top half of the first round board. We have another good tackle class coming next year. But when you can justify, this guy's going to start at left tackle for us for most of his rookie contract, that is an enormous savings over what you would pay for a Pro Bowl left tackle. Edge rusher is another big one.
Can I throw one in that I think is becoming more and more of a, if you can beat the system with a rookie contract, wide receiver.
Receiver's another one, yeah.
Yeah, because it feels like they are now being paid, rightfully so. But the fact is, because it's an interesting position, because outside of a Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
There's an argument to be made that you can turn the position over with the right athletes and players to remain cheap. But once you pay them now a ton. So 5 years ago, I really thought that it was an expendable position, and I still do think that you can definitely find them deep into the draft. but I think the premium being put on them continues to grow, which makes them a bargain if you can get a 1 or 2 production from a draft pick.
Yeah, the smartest football people, when they're in situations to go cheap with that position, they do. But the only time you can do that is when you have top 3, top 2 quarterback play in the NFL.
Yeah.
Look back at the dynasty with the Patriots. That was a position that year after year they went cheap on. There's a couple exceptions, of course. Late career Randy Moss, although they didn't have to. I mean, they were still moneyballing that. They didn't have to pay nearly top of the market to bring that guy in. He had the dominant season on their undefeated team or whatever. But that the Chiefs traded Cheetah, Tyreek Hill, when he was still in his prime, because they were like, well, we have Pat Mahomes. We can go cheap with the wide receiver position, and we're going to have to, because now we have to pay Pat Mahomes. So we need to open up some money. We can't pay Tyreek what Tyreek wants. Why not take the draft equity instead? But yeah, that's a position you're seeing teams pull that up the board a little bit more as well, because once those guys establish themselves as stars, if you also have a star at quarterback, you start getting into cap issues right away.
Yeah. Gavin wants to know for Thor, what's your must-have at the Minnesota State Fair?
Ooh.
I like the that bucket of cookies.
Oh, the Sweet Martha's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet
Sweet Martha's, I don't know what the latest numbers are, but they now have three of those big cookie barns. And, it's like a 12-day state fair. And they make like millions and millions of dollars off of those cookies over 12 days. And I don't know what they do if they're making cookies at other places or whatever, but it's
go home.
Wildly successful.
In 23, they made $4.6 million in 2000.
It's a lot of cookies, man.
A lot of cookies.
Yeah,
that's
a lot of cookies. But yeah, I like that. And then I also like doing the thing of trying random fried things that seem gross. Like when you just first see it, it's like, all right, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. We're still formulating official plans. We will have an official announcement at some point. But let's just say that Score North and Purple Daily are going to have a presence at the Minnesota State Fair this year. Thor is going to be, we've talked behind the scenes. We might just have to have like power ranking, like Thor's daily food power rankings or something.
Oh, that would be tremendous. Yeah, I already can't wait for August 28th. It's my 41st birthday. It is the Gophers home opener later that evening.
Buffalo.
And we will be live at the State Fair. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that yet, but
yeah, we're not. So we'll sprinkle some cookie crumbs the next month or so.
Yeah, Martha's, bring some of them buckets over.
Give me an estimation. How many thousands of dollars of those cookies end up on the state fairgrounds, literally falling out of the big bucket? Like I would say it has to be like at least $2,000.
Two hands on the ball. Hands on the ball. Okay.
How many steps do you take before you look down and see a cookie? I legitimately bet it
might be 5,000.
It might be like 15 to 20 steps for every step you take. Oh, there's a cookie. Oh, there's a cookie.
You're right.
That's one of the most hilarious things about the fairs. On day one, the birds are chirping. All of the grass is green and lush. The sidewalks and the streets are clean. And by like day 10, it's just a mad. People are like trapped.
It's Woodstock.
It's Woodstock.
It's Woodstock.
There's cookies are like baked into the sidewalks.
It's Fry Fest.
I wouldn't want to be a part of that cleanup crew. By the way, I've never told this story publicly, but the site of my greatest trauma in life occurred at the State Fair.
Oh no!
When I was a little kid, was there with my family, was walking with my father, and we were in like a crowd, and then he kind of peeled off and I didn't realize it. Then all of a sudden I'm looking up and you're like a little kid and it's like a bunch of aliens walking around you.
It's like Home Alone 2, man.
That's terrifying.
Oh, it was very scary. And then some nice woman saw me, and then, all of a sudden over the loudspeakers, they're saying my name. And my father got some words from my mother on the right.
Wait, so how long were you? How old were you again? And how long were you separated from your dad then?
4 or 5. And then it felt like hours. It was probably like 10 or 15 minutes. But
oh my gosh,
that's terrible.
I at 4 I start crying instantly.
At 18 I would have started crying. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, by the time I got to 8, I'm like, I don't like being lost, but I'm fine with it. But at 4 or 5, because that is scary.
Yeah, I hadn't felt that feeling again since the 2024 draft when the commissioner goes up and said the Atlanta Falcons select quarterback. And for just the briefest second,
Dad, that was my dad.
Briefest second, I felt exactly the same way I did. But then he started saying the first name, I was okay, we're good.
Not terrible, Terry. Terry, don't do it to me.
My good friend. Always giving back to the community.
Oh, that's great.
Oh my gosh. Does Butcher and the Boar have, Judd? Do they have any state fair presence? If not, they should. Butcher and the Boar should just put things on sticks at the fair.
Actually, you know what? Practice for the state fair being outside by checking out the Butcher and the Boar North Loop. Huge new patio. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to prepare yourself for drinking a delicious beer or a cocktail outside, Butcher and the Boar is the place to go. Of course, I don't have to tell you about their fantastic food, Southern-style hospitality. We've all tried it. It is absolutely fantastic. And so if you are going to a Twins game, though, I urge you, I want you, Sports Dad is telling you, stop by that patio, enjoy some drinks, perhaps some food, enjoy a night on that side of town. Butcher and the Boar is where it should start.
I don't know if North American Banking Company has a presence at the fair, but I know that their Roseville location is very close to the state fairgrounds. They have 6 locations in the Twin Cities. North American Banking Company has been Minnesota-based since 1998, and they're here to give you a better banking experience. If you're interested in actually having a relationship with the human beings that oversee your finances, unlike some of the big sort of, national name banks, I can tell you, friendly, knowledgeable people and major emphasis on cutting-edge online tools and the safety and security of your accounts. If those things sound like a better banking experience for you, go to nabankcode.com/Mackey to learn more. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. And you're cutting it kind of close for fireworks weekend here, but you still have time, Declan, today.
Yeah, I'm heading up to the cabin later today. I'll be crossing the border, and if you're doing the same thing, Fireworks Forever, more boom for less bucks. They have 2 locations, one in Somerset, one in St. Croix Falls. Actual pyrotechnicians are on staff here to help answer any questions you may have. And you'll notice as you're perusing through the aisles there's these QR codes. You can just scan the QR code, because sometimes you're looking at a firework and like, what is this? What does it even do? Scan the QR code. It shows you what it does. Fireworksforever.com, too, for pricing and coupon information. Go stock up for those last-minute firework needs at Fireworks Forever. More boom for less bucks.
Okay, back to Ask Thor Anything here. Purple People Eatery chimes in. Kind of putting you on the spot with this one because it might take research, but he says, who are some guys on other teams that you'd be interested in picking up if and when they are cut from 53-man rosters at the end of camp?
So I would have to go through the depth charts to give you specific names, but the one specific position I can give you is running back. I do not believe that Ty Chandler will be on the roster this coming season, which means that you have an opening for an RB3. Will they take 2 into the season again, and then it's like, oh, Ham is kind of our de facto RB3 till we trade for Cam Akers for a 3rd straight September?
Make it happen.
Do they just want to take care of it in August? There's this historically stacked running back class has created this situation around the NFL. Like we've talked about before, where there are several running back rooms where you have 4 rosterable running backs. They can't keep them all. So there will be rosterable running backs that are cut in August that you can sign for peanuts. And I would heavily advocate for the Vikings to do that unless Trey Stewart comes and just knocks people's socks off in camp and steals that job himself.
Research. Who needs it? Thor doesn't need it.
No. Well, I was going to ask about, so you're talking about the Jacksonville State kid, right?
Yeah.
The undrafted. Yeah, Trey
Correct.
Stewart.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's 5'8", 186, pretty small, went undrafted, played small college football, but dominated Conference USA, scored a bunch of touchdowns. Is he Judd's camp notes has seen a little bit of him in the OTAs and mini camps too, so we'll know more in training camp, but is he a viable guy that could sneak onto the 53, or is he? Judd's saying no. Judd's shaking his head.
I think he's practice squad guy best.
Practice squad. Yeah, what I want to see, and so I'll be tuning into Judd's camp notes as always, is the transition. You go from Rich Rodriguez, who is Jacksonville State's coach last year. He is now returned to West Virginia, but you had the classic shotgun spread offense there where they did the hurry up. And Trey Stewart, he was facing all these thinned out boxes. I really liked his vision and feel, and then the agility to make the first guy miss. What he's lacking, of course, is measurables. Right. But he was crazy productive last year in that system. But now you go to the NFL, obviously the athletes get a lot better and the spacing becomes much more constricted. So will that game translate? We'll see. It seems like Judd is little bit trepidatious on that account from his early viewing of Trey Stewart, but Trey Stewart going to get another shot this summer.
Is it just the measurables that Judge Camp Notes takes issue with? Or
the measurables are an issue. I also will say this, and I'm about to, if you have time for it, delve into some football talk here.
Oh, I got time. I always got time for you, Judge.
Do we have time?
I don't think I shared this at the time because it didn't seem to be as important, but in this case it does, and it involves Ty Chandler. So in talking to or asking Matt Daniels about Isaiah Rodgers, the cornerback, possibly being the Vikings' main kickoff return man, he brought up this fact, and I find it to be very intriguing. So the Vikings, because of how the kickoff works now, there's 2 deep, not 1. And the reality is the guy that doesn't get the ball, the injury risk on kickoff sounds like it's higher to that player than anyone else because they're basically in charge of blocking. They're having to come the farthest, right? So the collision, the point of impact, bang, is harder on that guy than anyone. So keep that in mind of how this is going to shake out, because if Ty Chandler doesn't make the team, you sort of have to have a guy that's, at least for that job, who's got some size, who's got some resilience, and just the fact that that's Chandler right now intrigues me, because if they stick with the running back position for that job, you sort of have to have a sacrificial lamb and a guy that loves the sport and isn't afraid to get his nose dirty and might get concussed.
Yeah, well, and I'd be looking again at the free agency wire for that. Right. Like for instance, thinking about the last running back class, like a guy that pops in my mind, I don't think he's going to get cut, but Kalel Mullings from Michigan was a converted linebacker, and he's like this 235-pound sledgehammer. He'd probably be good for that role, right? And he can be a short yardage guy. That one of the guys that the Cowboys picked, Phil Maffa, the Maffa man from Clemson, he's 230 pounds. He's a big sledgehammer.
That's a big boy.
Phil Maffa might get cut. Dallas going to have to cut someone.
Sure.
They don't have a great running back room, but they have too many. So, yeah, I think a guy like that could become available to the Vikings in free agency.
Yeah. And I just checked. Cam Akers is on the Saints offseason roster here. So, you in break glass in case of emergency. Yeah. You got a treasure trove of picks next year in 2026.
6th round pick. Just another 6th round pick.
For comedy, if nothing else.
100%. Keep the streak alive as long as possible. And then let's see. So, man, you thought that was football-y football, Judd.
Football.
Mark Larson wants to take us to the edges of the offensive line depth chart here. And his question is, Thor, you seem to be high on Logan Brown, who was the highest in terms of the consensus big boards.
Yep.
And I think in your UDFA rankings, the best available undrafted free agent, maybe on the market, period. Vikings got him from Kansas. And so Mark says, Thor, you seem to be high on Logan Brown potentially making the roster. Is he a better offensive tackle prospect than Walter Rouse?
Yeah, in my opinion, yeah. I think I had him rated just a bit ahead of where I had Rouse. I like his game just a little bit more. I'm curious to see Brown. He was at right tackle last year. I think that's where they've been working. I'm curious to see that, you get any guard stuff with him as well. Maybe, increase the swing sort of versatility there. But yeah, just as a prospect, yeah, I like him a little bit more. And we mentioned this during, the UDFA episodes and stuff, but Logan Brown from pedigree and then from his play last season absolutely should have been drafted. And he absolutely should have been drafted as a mid-round pick. There was that circumstance that led to his exit from Wisconsin that I think is what cost him during draft day. But from what I heard, it was a one-off. So as long as he is in there and working hard, that kid has all the ability in the world. And if nothing else, is going to provide a really, really good depth piece. But if he develops into a starter someday, I wouldn't be surprised at all. He certainly has the physical tool set to do that.
Opening day of training camp, I think what you're going to see is Darrisaw won't be taking part in practice. Justin School, who they signed as a veteran guy, will be the left tackle. Yeah, Justin School. Sorry about that. My bad. Walter Rouse was working as the primary right tackle backup to Brian O'Neill. But yeah, I think Brown is going to get a chance. They still like Rouse, I think. So I think in their mind, there's no question because of the year of experience that Walter Rouse has the leg up right now. But that being said, training camp is where jobs are won or lost, especially preseason games. And I do think that the joint practice with the Patriots, and the preseason games will be incredibly important in sort of trying to parse apart that backup right tackle position, especially.
One thing to add to this sort of offensive tackle depth discussion, Alec Lewis from The Athletic, he made mention this week that the potential of a week 1 return for Christian Darrisaw is, quote, probably a rosy expectation. So it's very coin flippy as to whether, and that's kind of what Judd's been saying too, just floating around the team. But it's coin flippy at best as to whether, and I think if they're going to err on either side with he's still a young left tackle, they might just wait a few weeks, throw him on IR and just bring him back sometime after the first month, right?
Yeah, so he took part in individual drills, which is of course no real stress in minicamp. And I will say the size of the brace on that dude's knee was enormous. So I could see him not playing until like week 3 or 4. And if you're going to be, so he tore his ACL and MCL, I believe, in week 8 against the Rams. It would make some sense not to start him. The thing to keep in mind, and I talked about this on Purple Access with Chip too, is I think in their mind, Justin Skolthorski is in their mind a definite upgrade on Quessenberry. So I think there's less like stress or pressure to say, oh my God, the backup is just that. School started as well in the past for Tampa Bay and San Francisco. So I would not be surprised one bit if they are cautious with Darrisaw. And I also wouldn't blame them because, yeah, his career, he's too young and he's too good to screw up that knee because you decided to rush him back, which I don't think the Vikings would do.
Just a little bit more context for Mark and then the folks out there. I had Walter Rouse in the 2024 class, 149th overall on my board. Offensive tackle, 6'6", 314, 78th percentile athlete. This class, I had Logan Brown, 97th overall, offensive tackle, 9, 6'6.5", 311, 95th percentile, size adjusted athlete.
Yeah. Football. I'm gonna give you the football sounders.
Yeah, that kid can play.
Yeah.
Logan Brown can play.
No, he is. He's an athlete. We got one more thing for you here. It's more from our bin than the Ask Thor Anything bin, but it's been on our list to ask you for like 3 or 4 weeks here. That Over the Cap is now projecting the Vikings to get 3 compensatory picks for 2026. As we dive even deeper into the football weeds here on this Thursday. So essentially, and we talked a lot about this in the lead up to free agency, there's a formula that if you lose more valuable free agents than you bring in, the NFL awards you compensatory, essentially like balance out the talent lost picks for the next season's draft. And where the Vikings game the system is, they actually brought in a few high-level free agents that weren't set to be unrestricted free agents. They were cut by their previous team. So like Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, those guys don't count toward the comp pick formula. So the Vikings added a bunch of key pieces, but preserved their compensatory pick formula. So they're giving the Vikings right now a projected 3rd rounder for Sam Darnold's exit, a 4th rounder for Daniel Jones' exit, and you picked him up in like December, and then a 7th rounder for Trent Sherfield's exit right now. So that's 3 additional draft picks, 2 of them being pretty premium, a 3rd and a 4th rounder. Just wondering what your thoughts are on apparently Kwesi gaming this system to perfection here this last March.
Yeah, my first comment is what an offseason for Kwesi. The free agent class that he signed while still managing to squeeze out what could be 3 comp picks here and 2 very good ones, 2 legitimate mid-rounder ones is incredible. Spending that much money, bringing in the quality that you did and still coming out on the right side of the comp pick formula, it's just so slick. And the way that they did it, of course, they were targeting the guy, like you mentioned, that had been released that did not count towards that formula. And that's how you end up gaming this system. I've been, if people know who've been watching on here, I've been advocating for years, start playing the freaking comp pick game. That is where you get free value. Yeah. Like in this ecosystem that we have of NFL transactions, there's very few places that you can get free value. Playing the comp pick game is one of them. And no surprise, the smartest organizations are the ones that do that. I loved what Kwesi did. And you know, we're now on Daniel Jones' watch. everybody knows that the AAV is the first sort of data point that they use to do the comp pick formula. But there are other ones, and the second one has to do with the percentage of offensive snaps that you played at the position that you played. If Daniel Jones becomes a starter there, that's how that thing is going to end up vesting into a 4th-round pick. And we have a decent shot based on Trent Sherfield's projected playing time that one will convey into a 7th-round pick as well. So yeah, just really well done by Kwesi. That's the first comment there. And it's so encouraging that he is starting to play that game while simultaneously still bringing in the enormous amount of talent that he did via free agency.
And keep in mind, too, they're going to get a comp pick for Jones only because they got him onto the active roster for the playoff game. Without that, you don't get a comp pick. So, like, there's a lot of intricacies here that have to take place. And the most important one is the guy doesn't have to play for you. He just has to be on your roster for a week. Yeah. And then if he goes elsewhere, so, yeah, this is and it makes the Allen and Hargrave signings, too, really palatable because of the fact that you're not going to lose compensatory picks because of those two guys who I hope are good, but they're not exactly young and they could get hurt. That would hurt you a lot more if you potentially lost compensatory picks because, one or both of those guys had been signed as free agents after they had been not let go by their team.
Yeah, and one other thing out there for people is in the past, back in the day, you couldn't trade comp picks. They changed that a few years ago. These are legitimate pieces of ammo when you head into draft weekend for your flexibility, et cetera, et cetera. Vikings traded they traded back from their 3rd-round comp pick this year, skipped back a little bit, picked up some more draft equity, and then they were sort of off to the race with that. Ended up taking Ty Felton later that round, but yeah, those are real pieces, real legitimate pieces of equity. So well done to the Vikings front office getting that done.
I think we have to sort through. There's some some pending. I think there's a couple picks that are are they still pending based on trades? But they're going to have 9 or 10 draft picks, I think, in 2026. So they'll have some ammunition to maneuver around and maybe even trade for a veteran player. So yeah, it's a nice little job. Now you got to nail some of these picks. You got to make sure that you're bringing in, make sure Dallas Turner isn't a bust from last year, but we'll start to find out more about, for sure, JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner. So, all right, Thor, that's all we got for you here on this Thursday. It's holiday weekend. Thanks for your deep dive.
Of course. Yeah, I'm excited. Next week we'll talk about the mock. Yep.
Yeah, so Thor is already full on into 2026 mock draft season. So he knows in his projection who the Vikings are taking right now, and more importantly, where are they drafting? That's what I'm curious to see. Did you put your money where your mouth is here with your JJ McCarthy projection? That's what I want to know.
No, I did what people in my industry do with the flipped win total, because then the Vikings, they're picking higher than they will be in real life. So
okay.
2
that
weeks,
I was projecting to. Yeah.
2 weeks from Sunday, gentlemen, JJ McCarthy sets foot into the building.
Be July still 20th. My heart.
Brett Rippon shows up. Hey, Brett, what's going on? Sam Howell shows up. Oh, hey, Sam. And JJ McCarthy comes sauntering in. Sunglasses. Just looking spry and ready to go.
Loafers with no socks. That's right.
It's about to get real.
Exactly. Well put.
Yep. We're almost to training camp here, and we'll do it again. So next Thursday, it'll be a deep dive into who the Vikings. We're going to skip the whole season, and we're just going to go right to the 2026 NFL Draft. But you can find his work at MatthewBerry'sFantasyLife.com and every Thursday here on Purple Daily, or Thursday as we call it. For Thor, for Judd, for Dex, I'm Phil. Happy 4th of July weekend. We'll hit you with a Feedback Friday tomorrow before you set off to scarf hot dogs and whatever it is that you guys are going to do. And remember, we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die here on Purple Daily.